Hey there folks, Jumpask here, bringing another audio commentary, and today we have a game on Ancient Isles 2, and it's going to be between JN and Infi. So an interesting matchup to be sure. Infi obviously in this case playing Elf because he isn't a fan of either Elf or Human mirrors, so he tends to play either Elf or Human depending on what his opponent is playing, but normally Human apart from if his opponent is Human. And in this case, he is going to be going Elf, and Ancient Elf's quite an interesting matchup, really, for this, or quite an interesting map for this matchup. Obviously, we have these very short distance between the two bases, so you can sometimes see these really aggressive pushes, which, especially against Elf, can really catch him off guard if you get, say, a level 2 water elemental in the base and just start attacking wisps, forcing them to run away and detonate and stuff. Can cause some big problems. And also, actually, this is a pretty good map for different types of heroes. So I think Tavern heroes maybe not so much, but the Warden would be pretty good. Actually, yeah, we are seeing the Warden here from Infi. Infi is pretty fond of the Warden, and the reason I said the Warden's so good is this map is a bit like Terranistan in so much as you can get pretty much anywhere very quickly with Blink. There's these really long walks to get around places like here where you can just so quickly get around by Blink that just gives you so much mobility. And meanwhile, we are actually getting Mount King here for JN as well. That's not too uncommon. Certainly the creeping is pretty good here for a Mount King. And it's certainly, this isn't a good map as well for things like, for some heroes, which would be pretty annoying for the Mount King to have to try and play against. So, works out pretty well. So, for example, I mean, we're not seeing the Demon Hunter, we're seeing the Warden instead. So that's pretty good news here for JN. We'll have to see how Infi's going to play it out, though. As Infi now, we saw him actually at the very start of this game, sending a very early wisp so that he could build his Ancient of War very, very quickly, which allows him to do this creeping so soon, and allows him really to get onto the second cap. He's not so worried about being creepjacked here, it's more that he wants to get that level 3 so quickly, which is just so important. Often even on this map you'll see a Elf player get a second Ancient of War somewhere, just to try and pick up that quick level 3. Or what we might see is he might walk this Ancient of War down to this camp here, and in the meanwhile creep out this camp, and that will get him his level 3. And we do now see that he is very close to level 2 as well as picking up a Circle of Nobility. Very, very nice there for Infi. Actually, we do have Mountain King now picking up Cause of Attack. Not as good an item there for him, probably. But certainly it's not too bad. And now this one wisp, a very nice reaction time there actually by Infi. Just immediately gets off that detonate, and there wasn't too much Jane could do about that. He had to be close enough to get off the bolt, and because obviously you can attack with melee units that one tree. So interesting play here by both players so far, as we see JN now just going to run around a bit. Both players still level 1, but probably, well, actually look at this Ancient of War now going up for Infi, so not as soon as we often see, but certainly not too bad a situation. Actually a bolt going off here to kill this archer and then get that level 2, that's really huge there. And in the meantime we do now have this Warden still level 1, but it's going to be running around a bit. Maybe going to try and catch a couple units off, and just checking to make sure that there's no quick expansion going off here, which obviously in this case there isn't. And this Arcane Tower really so important here for Jay, and especially against this Warden, because otherwise you can cause a huge amount of trouble here. As we now see JN going to be moving down, actually intercepting this Warden just as he wanted to come in to buy the boots, and as a result JN's going to be able to buy the boots for himself, which is so super critical for Mount King, which is otherwise a very slow hero. And we can see actually he did buy the dust as well, but will he have the sense to check here for this Warden? And looks like the Warden is actually going to reveal herself and is now going to be forced to run, as we see JN's going to be pretty happy with that, having called Militia up. He really wants to get rid of this Warden, and looks like the Warden actually in a bit of trouble now at least. JN doesn't go for the bolt and surround, but certainly that's something he could go for. So we now see the first Huntress does now come in here for Infi, and we do actually see a lot of focus going on this Mount King who's forced back. And then now will we see any creep stolen here by Infi, who's still only level 1, bear in mind. And looks like he does manage to steal that one creep there, so that does give him his level 2. Will he go for Phantom Vibes? Will he go for Blink? Obviously Blink, as I say, very good on this map. As we see a bolt goes off now, and now this Warden in a lot of trouble, will be forced to hide. Maybe will be forced to train Blink. Yeah, we can see he has now trained Blink as well, as Dust now being used, and now this Warden being forced to Blink away. That's cost a huge amount of mana, 50 mana, so much, as well as puts on a huge cooldown until you get to level 3. So really bad news there for Infi, as we actually now see a boots being picked up here for this Mount King. Very unfortunate to have 2 of them. He could maybe pass one on to a second hero, but chances are with this Mount King, he's going to want to sell that for the extra gold, As you see, he is now trying to set up towers, but he's actually lost a huge number of peasants. So we now see another bolt goes off here on this ward. No mana for a blink, and does TP away at the last second with 18 hit points to spare. So very, very bad news there. And this Mountain King just barely survived as well, but has been shadow struck, but he will be able to survive. Very, very close there by both players, but Infi really not getting the best of that battle. But certainly having denied this expansion for a long time, having killed a lot of peasants, and now actually this Mountain King on the run has no way to heal because his Arcade Vault still under construction, so could be very, very bad news here for this Mountain King, as we do now see actually one Wisp here will be able to scout out that the Mountain King isn't moving up, and that's really going to help the Warden direct our attacks. So it looks like actually Infi more interested in trying to deny an expansion that isn't actually going up, and we can see actually JN picking up some Shadow Priest as well, and now this Mountain King pick up a Sap Teleportation, so we'll be able to TP right back. Well, actually TP to the Shadow Priest here. Interesting choice to be sure, as we now see Ancient Protectors going out again for an expansion that isn't yet happening. So Infi really jumping the gun a bit here, as we now see a lot of these footmen being taken down. Huntress is just so good against footmen now, and looks like a couple of low ones will be actually allowed to survive for perhaps a bit longer than they should be able to, but now we do see a blink going on and a Shadow Strike going on the Shadow Priest, which will slow it and will allow the kill to get off there. And in the meantime, we do now have a bolt going off now on this Warden who's almost level 3. Meanwhile, the Mountain King actually pretty close to level 3 himself, and then now this Warden with no TP will be forced to run, and the TP does now go off for this Mountain King, who was Shadow Struck, and now the Warden has hit level 3 as well. So very, very close game so far, but really not too bad at all for Infi. Having taken a lot of damage at the start, he's now doing a lot better. He will be able to go back with his Warden and heal up as well, and we do not have this Tree of Life having now started, and a Ancient of War, which will be very, very useful to try and do some creeping sooner rather than later. And I'm amazed he didn't cancel these Ancient Protectors actually. Let's see, he's good, maybe just trying to use them to prevent the expansion from going up in the future, and maybe put on some pressure later on. And we can see he's even using a Wisp to repair here as opposed to lifting and needing a tree, which is a bit surprising there, but certainly uprooting can cause a bit of problems just in terms of getting back rooted, and really maybe it's not too big a cost, and that's a cost Infi's willing to put up with. And in the meantime, JN really sitting in this base. He's taken a lot of damage on his Mountain King. He's kept it alive for now, and actually now calling a bunch of militia, and looks like maybe he's going to go creep this camp here. Maybe he's going to try and hit Infi. I imagine this could be the creeping option, but certainly just because his Mountain King is so low on health, he did lose that Shadow Priest. It's very, very tricky for him to be aggressive at all for a little while at least, and we do see a clause of attack +9 being picked up here for Infi. So certainly a decent item, but we might see it sold a bit later on, just because if you're going single Warden, then your spots are very, very valuable. So we see Creepjack now coming on this Mountain King with no TP. Could maybe pick up a Zeppelin, but unfortunately looks like that's not to be, as this Mountain King just going to be focused down. He did pick up the Anchor of Reincarnation, finally picks up the Zeppelin, but it's a bit too late. The Shredder now being picked up as well, and maybe he'll be able to pick up his Mountain King just in time, and will he? Yes, he does, and actually he's completely loaded up the Zeppelin now, so he will just want to get away. As we see, there's no units here that can attack air for Infi, so he will just be forced to let that live, and now the Zeppelin just going to make a run for it back to the base. But picking up the Shredder was a weird choice here, because obviously Shredders don't do a huge amount of damage to Huntresses, and that there's no archers on the field, and he doesn't have 2 bases or anything where he's going to need that huge number economy. So a really weird choice, and it's going to be so tricky for him to expand with these Interprotectors. We now actually see this reveal now being used as well. And I'm not sure, he must have used a healing salve and then picked back up into the Zeppelin. And he's now maybe just going to use this to try and get around without being Creepjack or caught out of position. And still this expansion just being lifted up now, so Infi being a bit slow on that, but certainly it's not too slow. So you now see his tech is just getting started here, halfway to tier 2. Meanwhile, JN sticking tier 1, and these Huntresses doing some good creeping now as well. Really very, very important to get up that Warden to level 5 as soon as possible. Already level 4, so doing pretty well. As we see one fake Warden just gonna go scout out, maybe even try and bait a bolt, but chances are we'll see JN click on the Warden and see there's only 2 charges on there, so you can really often tell with this sort of situation. As we now see JN actually doing some more creeping here, picking up healing wards, not the best item certainly, and I'll probably want to sell those on, as we now see the Shredder being used to do some more creeping as well. So interesting choices here by JN. I do believe that is the same Shredder, but it looks like it is certainly, and that Shredder is so useful at taking out Berserkers because they just take so much bonus damages. And Looks like meanwhile this warden, or this fake warden at least, going in and scouting out where the creeping's going on, and by deductive reasoning, really, if anything, he's going to work out that it's here, and we do now see 2 shredders now for Jay, and so much potential damage, but just not being able to be done because huntresses just aren't going to take much damage from a shredder here, as we now see these huntresses being cut out. Finally, this Mountain King hitting level 4, so good experience so far for both players now, as we see these huntresses taking more and more damage. Really a bit sloppy here by Infi, as we now see that the wardens could be trying to intercept now, and looks like one Ancient of Lore actually going down now, so we're sort of starting to see what Infi's plan in this later game is going to be, as he's probably going to go into a bear Dryad composition with heavy on bears, I'd imagine, considering the shredders and considering the berserkers that we're now being seen used here by JN. As you see, a second healing ward now being used, only one remaining here for this for JN. So interesting play to be sure. And Zeppelin now very low on health. He does need to be very careful. As very nice dodge there on that bolt, using that invulnerability push at the last second. Really going to mean that this ward can do a whole lot more damage. So important to be able to do those shadow strikes early on in the battle, just so you can take out more units, and so they can't be attacking all battle long. As you see, a lot of these low hunters is being microed back. A blink now comes in, and now a bolt goes off on that warden. And the warden now going to take a bit of damage, but certainly the army of JN is doing very well. But still, this warden in a decent position still, just because she's getting closer to level 5, and the Mountain King just isn't going to have the army backup that he's going to need in the coming sort of couple fights. And now this warden going to be able to do some more creeping with the help of the Ancient Protectors, who will need to be sure not to get off any last hits or anything. And actually, by the looks of things, they did actually get off that last hit, so a bit unfortunate there. And a Wand of Illusion now going to be picked up here for this ward, actually full on inventory, but we'll maybe just use this one last charge on the old Wand of Illusion. Actually, no, uses the Clarity Quotient, so now has 2 Wands of Illusion, so a bit excessive there, really, if anything. And JN now with his huge Merc army, as well as a couple of footmen, and this level 4.5 Mountain King, going to maybe move into Infi space, see what they can do. Going for a lot of Dryads by the looks of things, with no Tier 3 ambitions at the moment, which is interesting, certainly, because the Dryads are going to take a lot of damage from the Berserkers, not a lot from the Shredders, but can't be bolted as well, so it's an interesting choice. And we do now see this one Lord does go down, and now the Warden has now been bolted, so we'll get bashed as well. Warden now in a lot of trouble, being healing up on all the remaining moon walls, but still having a very low life, as the Huntresses now come in and are going to do a bit of damage. Lots of fake Wardens there are going to take a bit of damage, but Infi not going to be too confusing with that, because JN's too smart a player to be confused by that. As we see more blinks now being used here by this Warden, and the Warden now going to just be trying to avoid that bolt at all possible costs, because that is a level 3 bolt going to be coming out from this Mountain King, and this Mountain King is still a very nice position, has very good items, and still at full health, and enough mana for another bolt, as we see this Warden constantly blinking back whenever he thinks a bolt is going to be coming in. And now a couple of these low footmen should be taken out. Actually, looks like the Zeppelin's going to be taken out as well, because you now see this Warden getting that level 5. Very nice play there. And so important is we see a healing spell being used, and a bolt now going off on this Warden. Didn't mention dodge at that time, but the Warden has a lot of mana and can get some good shadow strikes off and then immediately blink out. Obviously blink still is a big cooldown, because it still is only level 2 blink, but it still is very powerful. Now this Warden does need to be very careful, actually. The Mountain King taking a lot of damage as well, and the blink coming forward, aggressive blink, very bold to play here, as we see a bolt goes off now on this Warden. Warden going to take a lot of damage, and the Warden gets healed up, but does not heal up enough, and does go down. Big mistake there by Infi, and now this Mountain King down to very low health, but look at the huge amount of DPS and tanking ability coming in here by JN, and the Mountain King just going to TP out. Very nice play here by JN, who despite playing 1 base versus 2 this whole game, really has been playing fantastically, so close to the edge, but keeping this Mountain King alive for so long, dodging the Warden for as long as possible, and now can heal up with impunity, and maybe look to take an expansion if he can take out these Ancient Protectors before the Warden is back, which is almost certainly going to be a long time. Actually no, the Warden was taverned back now, so very bold play here, because it's going to mean that there's going to be many fewer units, and Infi lost so many units in that last battle anyways, and he has so little moon juice, so it's really going to be tricky. We can see he's using clarities and everything. Really tough position now for Infi, and we do not see this Mountain King continue to heal up. He is now level 6 as well, so that Avatar is going to be so amazing against a Warden, because it means you can't be hit by Shadow Strike. You have a whole bunch of extra hit points, whole bunch of extra damage. That bash is just so dangerous as well. really does need to be careful. And we now see this Warden goes next to the Mount King and immediately blinks away. Doesn't want to even risk taking a bolt there, as we now see actually these droids doing a huge amount of damage to the Mount King and to the footman. We see the bolt going off now. It looks like the two footmen will go down. Probably, actually, maybe one of them will manage to get away. This Zeppelin actually very close to going down. Looks like it will maybe go down. No, it actually does manage to survive and will hopefully be repaired very soon. As we now see a blink coming in, the bolt immediately goes off before the Shadow Strike can go off though. Nice play there by Jan, and is immediately an invuln pod is used as well. And actually we see the regeneration now going off now on this Mount King as well. Just while he can get away with that. So very nice play here by Jan, staying alive and keeping that Warden from doing too much damage. And he doesn't have enough mana for Avatar if he gets in trouble as well, so really does need to be very careful. But these Shredders doing so much damage. Very nice play here, just constantly repairing them when he leads the battle, and so they're actually doing decent DPS. They always have good DPS, just because 34 to 61 with a fast attack speed is very good. But the problem is that they're so expensive that if you're not attacking things with normal armor, that you're just not doing too much. And look at these two sappers coming in here, and they do take out this base. Very nice play here by JN, and fortunately no Nature's Blessing, which would prevent that from being possible with just two sappers. Very strong play here, as we see this Tree of Life now having to be rebuilt, and the sappers now coming in, or the Shredders now coming in. They're going to take out this one Moonwell. Moon Juice not being used in time. Bit of a mistake there by Infi again, as we now see a blink coming forward. The Avatar immediately being used though. So smart play here by Jane, just constantly keeping this Mount King in a position where he can't be hit by the Warden for too much damage. And now we do see one Dryad goes down to that Mount King, and the Warden forced to blink away just because he doesn't want to be taking too many bolts, because he's been losing these Moonwells and he just can't afford to keep losing them. And in the meantime, we do now have one of these Shredders looking very low, but the Warden does need to be so careful, even at half health, just because that blink and then a good bash can really cause so much trouble, especially when you're in Avatar form, because you get that plus 20 damage, which is so painful. And we do not see one bash goes off now. This Warden going to be chasing him down. Actually, the Warden picked up a scroll protection, which I find a bit peculiar, to be sure. And we do now have the Avatar Mount King just going to be running away as this one Shredder does go down. And the Warden now going to use a Staff of Teleportation, going to use it straight to his expansion. And now the Moon Juice being used on that one Moonwell. A couple more Moonwells being used now, and the Avatar about to run out, so the Mount King does get out of there, and we'll be looking to heal up as soon as that Avatar-ness is done. Obviously you can heal more effectively once you're not Avatar. Oh my god, another Sapper came in here, and actually it must have been 3 Sappers, because that was an upgraded Tree of Life. So wow, very bold play here by JN, especially considering he's on one base, so it means he basically has no army. But now there's no income for Infi for a long time now, really punishing him for not getting that Nature's Blessing. Very bold play here, as we now see this invisible Warden now coming in, going to try and do a bit of harassment maybe on this Mount King, but again does need to be so careful about taking, especially when he's in range of the Arcane Tower, because he needs to preserve his mana at all costs, and he just gets off one Shadow Strike and blinks away, and that's probably for the best at this point, just because it's otherwise so dangerous to be in a position where you could be bolted and bashed in the range of towers, in the range of Shredders, and maybe even in the range of surrounding militia. And we might even see the Zeppelin being used to pick up units, either when Shadow Strike's in the air or when they're just low on health. And that certainly could be very useful in such a situation where you don't have a huge number of units, so you can afford to spend a huge amount of APM on each unit and on your heroes. And we do now have a couple Dryads going to come in with this Warden. It looks like the Dryads are just going to be checking what's going on. Maybe, actually look at that, using the Zeppelin to deny cancelling on the Salve and Clarity. And obviously the Dryads can be used to do this, because they can't be bolted, so they can't, they're never going to take too much damage, really any damage at all, because there's only melee units here for JN. And now we're going to have to see what this Zeppelin's going to go do. Maybe going to try and drop in the back, take out the gold mine or something. But you do need to be very careful. Actually, no, he's going to drop out here, and now going to take up. Actually takes a couple hits there on his Mount King, and immediately picks up the Mount King. Though it certainly is too late to really do anything. Maybe he's just worried about being shadow struck, so he does just keep it in the Zeppelin for as long as possible. But because he has boots, it's probably better just to be more mobile outside of the Zeppelin and pick up if worse comes to worse. And we do now have the Mount King continuing to push forward now. And actually going to get a bash off here on this Dryad, but eventually this Dryad is going to be able to get away. and the Ancient of War actually now being moved to the front of the battle here, and this could cause problems. Actually, all these Wisps are in so much trouble. Look how quickly Shredders kill Wisp. It's only 2 shots normally, and that's just so bad here for Infi. Actually, Infi has a lot of lumber, so it's not too bad, but certainly he's going to need to repopulate this gold mine pretty soon, and when he does that, he doesn't want to be building more Wisps. And we do not have Avatar being used yet again. One of these hunters is being microed back. These hunters have been alive for so long, and now the Shredder is doing so much damage as well, and a really bold army composition here from JN, but I'm not sure if it's going to be enough as more sappers come in here, take out that Tree of Life just as a finish. So brutal play here by JN, constantly denying the income and just being really cost efficient. He hasn't lost a unit in forever, apart from the cost of the sappers, which he's been losing every once in a while, and so bold play here as we now see this Tree of Life being constructed yet again, but will it even get up before the sappers get back to him? So nice play here by JN, and Infi being left sort of neutered, really unable to do anything because he has no income, only the income he can get from selling items and creeping, and looks like he's actually going to take a lot of damage there from that bolt, and does eventually manage to blink away though, but certainly if that happens enough time, eventually you're going to get a couple bashes in a row and you're going to take far too much damage, and eventually another bolt will come off, and at that point really you've lost your hero, all for the sake of a little bit of extra damage. So you do need to be very careful. As you see, actually now this one Wisp running away. No issues of the single space between the two Moonwalls means that the Wisp can run where the Shredders and Mountain King can't. And now another bolt goes off here on this Warden, who's so painfully close to level 6, but just can't get there in time. It's a nice dodge down on that Shadow Strike. Really strong play here by both players, really playing their best. The third Shredder does come in now, and is going to try, I think that's probably the old Shredder which just went back to be repaired, and looks like one of the Shredders which was taking a lot of damage and was on the bad side, just being picked up here by the Zeppelin. Fantastic micro here by JN, really paying a huge amount of attention to his army. And now a bunch of Wisps coming out here. I'm not sure if they just want to get detonates there off on the Mountain King, but it looks like just the Shredders being dropped just so that they can be taking out those Wisps without having to worry about losing any mana on the Mountain King. Actually, Mountain King now being dropped and immediately getting that level 7. Does have an invisibility cushion which he immediately pops now, but it looks like actually, oh no, he hasn't been spotted. He just took one hit there, and actually now this Warden hiding as well. Needs to be so careful, but does have an invuln pot, and again has that scroll protection, which I really don't understand with this army composition. As the reveal now being used now, the bolt going off on this Warden, who's now down to no health at all. It does, just barely managed to get off that invulnerability potion at the time, and the Zeppelin does pick up the Mountain King before it's too late, and now the Warden blinks away just as the Mountain King is dropped yet again. He does have enough mana for another bolt, so certainly Warden needs to be very careful in this situation, but the Mountain King is so low on health, and it doesn't quite have enough mana for a Avatar. I'm not even sure if it's off cooldown. Is this Warden now coming back out, and we do now have the Warden gonna maybe try and get back into this fight, gonna maybe try and get off a Shadow Strike, then blink away, maybe even try and use a mana in this Moonwall, just because it would be opportunistic to be sure. And now the Mountain King gonna continue marauding around here, maybe gonna try and, oh, he does get a bash off there, so he does get that one last Hunter's kill. And those Hunters have been alive for so long now, as we see these Wisps being taken out, and the JN just gonna pick up and get out of there at this point. Really probably for the best at this in this situation, because he can go back and maybe try and get some healing off. There's no gold bear in mind here, so maybe we're gonna see JN go for some last attack. He does have enough to build an expansion if he really wants to, but I don't think that's gonna be his plan at this point. The Warden just too much of a threat to an undefended expansion. When you're forced to keep your army in one place for too long, it just is going to cause trouble, because you're going to have exposed peasants, and you're going to lose all your map control. So an expansion can be taken by Infi. It's really going to be very tricky. You now see another Shredder being picked up. Finally, this level 6 for this Warden. Look how long it's been since he last killed a unit, and that's all down to the fantastic Zeppelin micro by JN. As we now see all these Shredders being repaired, it looks like that's going to be the use of the last gold for JN, as he's just going to be able to long distance mine if he wants, but even then the ancient vectors have been moved to block any sort of unit coming in, so he would need to kill off those first. So really strong play here by both players so far. This level 6 Warden now going to use the last of his Moonwalls. Actually, interesting that Infi's choosing to repair these Moonwalls. I guess he's worried about losing them all to the Shredders and stuff, but still it's very bold. You now see this Tree of Ages being upgraded here, and that will give him the life boost to be defended against a bit more against Shredders. but certainly as we've seen, enough shredders can take out a Tree of Ages, and looks like actually Avatar Vengeance being used immediately in this sort of situation where you don't have a lot of money, but you do have a fair bit of mana. Using things like Avatar Vengeance early on can be very, very useful, because it can mean that you can do a lot of things really cost efficiently, and you don't need to worry about taking too much damage on the Avatar Vengeance, anything like that. So certainly a good move in this situation. We can see Infi creeping this exclusively for the tiny amount of gold that he will gain from it, and now these a couple militia going to be taken down. Actually, looks like just one was taken down there, but still, it's a bit of a loss for someone who can't be rebuilding them, just can't afford it. And it's level 7 Mountain King now coming in, scouting. There's no expansion here, but we'll be checking out what's going on in the main, and it does know just by the fact that Infi isn't being revealed that there must be a base somewhere, and we do now have JN gonna move around here with his 4 shredders and Zeppelin. Such a crazy army composition here from a human, and actually now this one wisp gonna be taken out before he can detonate, unfortunately. Actually both players gonna be engaging now, and looks like the avatar of Infi is gonna be stronger than the avatar of JN for now, but certainly when JN chooses to use his, he will be able to do a lot of chasing around, but I imagine Infi's just gonna run for basically, as we now see this avatar doing a fair bit of damage. The blink comes in here, but the avatar now being used by Jay, and immediately invulnerability potion being used by the warden, who actually decides to run out behind it, and looks like actually the peasant's being brought in exclusively for repair, but I'm not sure how much money Jayan even has left. Actually no money left now for Jayan, so maybe they would be better in militia form, just to do a bit of tanking, a bit of damage, as we now see all these wisps being brought in to detonate. So much number, actually a lot of gold for Infi as well, so a bit surprising there. We can see he's actually still building units, which certainly is something that Jayan can't afford to do, so it puts quite a clock here on Jayan to do something, and we'll have to see how much he can actually do at this point, as we now see these shredders doing so much damage. The bolt goes off now on this warden, who is still just barely level 6, barely killed anything in like the last 20 minutes of this 30-minute game, and now we do see this one Zeppelin has been focused down finally, and that's going to cause huge problems here for JN, who can no longer do nifty micro here with that Zeppelin, and now this warden taking a lot of damage. Does blink away though, and unfortunately actually didn't go for that level 3 blink, which could have been very, very useful in this situation, though certainly his Avatar Vengeance has been very, very useful as well, as we see when the second one of those shredders being taken out now, and now the Avatar is run out now for JN, and JN may be going to be on his last legs here, as he takes the Shadow Strike, gets off the bolt himself, and actually now the Potion of Healing has been bought here, but it looks like it might not even be necessary, as that Mount King does go down, and very, very nice play there by Infi as JN forced a GG. What a close game there. I cannot believe how many sappers were used for one thing, but just the really weird combination of units there by JN. So interesting, but in the end Infi just so clutch play with his warden, constantly using blink to its best ability, and a really strong play there. So I hope you enjoyed that game, folks, and I'll bring you some more games in the near future. Thanks for watching.